Cloud Code is just pushing version 3.1.0, tagging it and releasing it in GitHub. So latest steps for completing this new patching release. And I want to introduce with this video the architecture and how does it work behind the scenes, the completely automated setup of that architecture. As you will see in the other video that where you have a demonstration about how to set up a remote processor group, what we do is connect multiple, in this case 2 of them, but it could be whatever number of clusters that you want to run. And those clusters, because it is just for demo purposes and for understanding how to set up it, those clusters are running locally. So what I have is completely separated. Here it is, the schema. Yeah, let me, oops, here it is. What I have is cluster number 2 and cluster number 1. Yeah, in each cluster, we have 3 instances of NiFi, Apache NiFi, and 3 more instances of Apache NiFi. Of course, we could have many more instances of Apache NiFi. This is a cluster, so all of them, each cluster runs different flows, and all the nodes of a cluster run the same flow. For deciding who is the leader of that cluster, we have 3 instances of Zookeeper that will be the system used for electing the master of that cluster. This is going to happen completely automatic. You don't have to do anything, but you have to know this is going to have a delay when you set up, when you start the cluster. So for starting the cluster needs between 2 and 3 minutes. And again, this is because the master of the cluster, it has to be elected. The storage is just bindings on the host machine. As you can see, it follows this structure. So we have a folder called clusters, and inside that folder, we have cluster 1, cluster 2, and whatever, and all the volumes and all that stuff. Something critical, important to understand, it is that the security interconnecting clusters is quite not easy. I don't want to say complicated, but far from being easy, because we have trust store and key stores, which are vaults where we have the keys inside Java virtual machines, and this is a nightmare for having that working. The easy way for interconnecting clusters is to use certificates emitted by the same certificate authority. It is the easy way. In the other way, you can also have multiple CAs, but all those CAs, especially if they are self-signed, has to be saved or stored inside the trust store vault. So it is not easy to manage all the stuff, because then when you configure NiFi in the configuration file, you have to have the proper configuration for accessing those vaults. Here we have the details about how the intercluster communication, so side-to-side communication, is set up. I'm not going to spend so much time here in this video for explaining those details, but here you have that sequence diagram explaining the movement of packages before the flows exchange data between them. What we are is in the GitHub repos of the project, but something important to explain in this video, it is thanks to when you clone these repos, you only have to set up the .env file. Here I have the repos cloned. Let me zoom in a bit. Yeah. And then, yeah, what I do is just get that example, copy it in .env. In my use case, it's exactly the same because I don't want to change anything. As I said, it is just for demo purposes. And here it is the default password that it will be set up in the user interface of the node. Okay, then as I said before, inside clusters, we will have the folders of each of those clusters. But the magic of all that stuff, or the thing that it will help you a lot, it is that you have a unique command line interface, which is called cluster. And thanks to that, you have plenty of commands that will help you to set up the cluster or a new cluster in an easy way. For instance, now, if I want to know how many clusters I have running, I send this command list. If I send status, I can see node status not running. Well, I found an issue here because they are running, but for any reason, this is not capturing. So I have to patch that. Okay, it has to say running. So sorry about that. Then another important thing that you have properly documented in the README file, it is how you access to one cluster or another cluster if you're running all of them in local. As you can see in those port mapping tables that you have here, okay, or even better, the cluster examples, okay, cluster 01 will have HTTPS ports in that range. Pay attention, 30,000 cluster 1, 31,000 cluster 2, 32,000 cluster 3, and keep on, of course, okay? Then side-to-side communication ports, 30,000 for cluster 1, 31,000 cluster 2, okay? Easy to understand. NiFi number 1, 43. NiFi number 2, 40, it's in the middle, okay? 44. NiFi number 3, 45, okay? Imagine we have NiFi number 4, 46, yeah? Easy. It's always the same pattern for all clusters. When you want to create a new cluster, the only thing that you have to do is just say create, for instance, cluster number 3. And all the steps required for setting up a new cluster are done completely automatic as you have seen now, okay? Very fastly. I'm not going to go step by step, but just for giving you a reference. Cluster creation, here you have a summary, what is going to be set up, the port range, blah, blah, blah. Validating a prerequisites, initializing the cluster workspace directories. Yeah, so here we have clusters, here we have cluster 3. The certificates generated, the configurations generated for each of the instances of NiFi, the volumes of data for NiFi and Zookeeper, blah, blah, blah. Here is the step where the PKI generates the self-signed certificates for this cluster. Then the configuration generation generated in this step. Then configuration generation complete, blah, blah, blah. The NiFi cluster, the Docker Compose for launching it. Okay, here we have Docker Compose number for the cluster number 3. Okay, service Zookeeper 1, Zookeeper 2. NiFi 1, here it is, all the environment variables required for setting all that stuff, the references of the volumes, and the dependencies of the Zookeeper. Okay, then when everything is complete, for launching the cluster, it is as easy as running this command. Okay, cluster start 03. Then if you say logs, you can see in real time the logs of the process of the starting. Yeah. Now, you can see how it is starting. What I recommend to do, it is run validate. What it does validate is checking or launching 31 tests for validating the setup. So the configurations created by create are okay. So folder permissions, certificates validations, all that stuff is ready to run the cluster. If you want to be aware when the cluster is running, you can also say cluster wait, cluster 03. And when everything is running, you will see it very fastly. Okay, you will receive a message saying, hey, the cluster is ready. And then my suggestion is to run a command called test. Here you have the, let me improve that because it is something that I had to do and I forget to do it. It is just, let me show you that. Rendering, a bit slower. I'm sorry, I will do it. Anyway, firstly, it is start and then validate. Yeah. Still rendering. Yeah, you can see here it is a progress, but it is difficult to see it. Yeah, the cluster is started, as I already said. If you want to test if the cluster is ready to be used, just say cluster test. And the most important step of this testing is the step number 9. The step number 9, what it does, it creates a processor. In this case, it has that UUID, and wait up to 5 seconds for validating that all those 3 nodes have the same processor created. So what does it mean? It is that the cluster is properly running and without having to do anything, just create anything in any of the nodes of the cluster, and the rest of the nodes of the cluster will be updated with the latest version of the flow that you have. So extremely, extremely useful. Many more things are checked, like the zookeeper health, the TLS certificates validation, the UI access, the authentication process, the backend access from the front, from the web UI. Okay, all that stuff, it will be checked thanks to that test. If you want to connect here, so it's not complicated, we can see. For instance, I'm going to connect the node number, this is the node number 1. I'm going to go to node number 2. Okay, so what I will do it is just HTTPS, localhost, and I will put a 4 here, just NiFi, and here it is. You have the admin, and then the password is here, and boom, here it is, cluster number 3 ready to use. Okay, for instance, I want to destroy this cluster. Just go here, say delete, and then there is a list of things that will be deleted, and if you say yes, automatically it's deleted. If you go straight, just -force -F and the cluster will be stopped. Okay, we will see that in real time. So here we have Docker Compose cluster 3. When this process finishes, boom, cluster 03 disappears. And of course, the UI is disconnected. This is the magic. This is what it helps you to have, that cluster command line interface. There are plenty of commands that you have properly documented here, and also just saying cluster. Here you have the complete help, yeah, with the quick start help, with the life cycle of the cluster, for the monitoring of the status of the cluster. So getting some information about the cluster, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Maybe I have plenty of bugs because I'm the only user of that stuff. And when you are the developer and you are the user, it's quite complicated to be aware of all the misunderstandings that some user could have of your product. So it will be nice to have your issues and understand what's not good enough or what it has to be improved for being useful for you. Again, remember, this is just for testing purposes. This is not for going to production, but it's especially useful to have that running. Let me reload to see. Yeah, 3.10. It's especially useful, as I was saying, because it could help you to understand what you have to set up. Cluster script, what it does is call all those, let me say, more specialized scripts inside the lib folder. And here you can see, for instance, this is the script called for creating the cluster. This is the script called for generating the Docker Compose file. Inside conf, you have some templates for the configuration files of NiFi, and here it is the script for setting up the values of all those configuration files required for NiFi. Inside the search folder, you have the details for generating certificates, for the certificate authority and for the cluster members, so the NiFi and the zookeeper and blah, blah, blah. And inside backlog, you have the list of tasks that I did with Cloud Code for creating this project, but something even more useful for you, which is docs. So all the complete documentation and details about, for instance, how create cluster is developed from inside. You have all the details, what I did, how the script, what the script does, step by step. Firstly, it does that, then it calls the other script, blah, 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 calling those functions for doing that, for getting that other thing done, the variables that it's setting up in each step, blah, blah, blah. All the complete details, what we did. When I say we, I mean me and Cloud Code did for getting that running are explained in those configuration files. In the technical decisions, you also have this other more technical stuff. At the very beginning, I created that strategy for setting up the project, and maybe you want to be aware of all those decisions. Nothing else. This is what I expected in the video. I hope this is useful for you and for getting that stuff running.